So I've been diving into Fusion a bit more lately, which you probably know if you've been watching my new series Scenes. And if you haven't been watching Scenes, well, you should probably go watch it. It's pretty cool. Now, I'm no expert in Fusion, not at all. In fact, I still consider myself a beginner, but I know the basics at this point, and I'm comfortable with the basics at this point. So I think that puts me in a unique position to be able to talk about the basics of Fusion without getting all confusing with technical stuff. So today we're going to dive into Fusion, and I'm going to explain the basics while walking you step by step through the portal effect that I used in my last episode of Scenes. Let's get started. Let's start off with what might sound like a stupid question. What exactly is Fusion? I mean, you can do a bunch of things with it. You can build effects, do some 3D work. You can do a whole bunch of stuff, but at its heart, Fusion is a compositor, just like After Effects or Photoshop or Affinity Photo. There's a whole bunch of different compositing software out there, but that leads us into the next question. What is compositing? Well, according to J. Lippman's dictionary, for people who want things as simplified as possible, compositing is putting things on top of other things and doing stuff to those things so it all looks like one thing. Let's dive into Davinci Resolve. We'll start off on the edit page. I've got a few different piles of video clips here, and each one of these piles is going to get turned into a Fusion composition with varying levels of complexity. Let's start with the first pile. You can see I've got 4 video clips here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to disable the top 3 so we can start from the bottom and work our way up. You can see I've got a shot of the wall in my studio, followed by a picture, or not a picture, a video clip of a portal effect, which I got off of Action VFX. It's where I get all of the visual effects that I use in my Fusion compositions. They're absolutely amazing, and they've got a pretty killer subscription deal. They'll be linked in the description below. On top of that, we've got this picture of a really cool forest looking thing. Now this forest, I did not shoot this. This came from today's sponsor, Artgrid. Artgrid is where I get all of this stock footage for all of my videos, and there's a really simple reason for that. They're amazing. Not only do they have a large selection of footage to choose from, all ranging from HD to 8K resolution, but you can also get the raw and logged versions of that footage, which makes it super, super handy when you're trying to color match between different cameras. On top of that, Artgrid has their amazing unlimited license, which means I can use the stock footage from their site in my personal projects, in my commercial projects. If I ever get into film and television, I can use it there. I can use it on platforms that don't even exist yet. I'm just covered. Artgrid will be linked in the description if you want to check them out. And if you sign up using that link, you'll actually get 2 months free on top of your annual subscription. No coupon code to enter or anything. It's pretty cool. Thank you so much, Artgrid, for sponsoring this video. And now let's get back into our composite. On top of this shot of the forest, we've got an alpha matte that goes along with our portal that we saw earlier. Now, in order to get all this stuff into Fusion in a way that we can work with it, what we need to do is we need to highlight all of these clips, right click, say new Fusion composition, and we'll just move our playhead back to the beginning of that Fusion clip and head over to Fusion. And this is the big scary Fusion, but it's not really that scary. Not if you break it down bit by bit and take things slow, which is what we're gonna do here. Let's start at the top. You've got a few different things that you should probably pay attention to. We're not gonna go through all of these options right now because we're just dealing with the basics. We can do more advanced stuff, or I can point you to people who can show you more advanced stuff in later videos. Right now, let's just get you comfortable with this software, all right? So up here, you can turn your media pool on and off. We're not gonna be bringing anything in from the media pool in this tutorial, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off. You can have your effects library here, and you can scroll down and search for different effects. Now, I by no means know what all of these effects do. I'm still kind of playing around with that. So we're gonna go ahead and leave that off as well. You can also turn on clips, and you can get a nice little show of all the clips that are in your main timeline here, which is pretty cool, but we're not gonna need that right now. So we'll turn that off. And then you can turn your node section on and off. So if you want to preview what you're doing, you can make the screen a little bit larger and get rid of those nodes. And then over to the right, we've got splines, and that has to do with when you've got motion in your videos, you can make them smoother or sharper. And we're not going to cover that today, but that's where that is. We've also got keyframes. So if you've got stuff keyframed, you can go in there and mess with the keyframes. You've also got metadata for your clips, and you've got your inspector. Now we're going to be using the inspector quite a bit, so I pretty much always leave that open no matter what page I'm in. All right, and down in this area, we've got our two monitors, and we actually do have two. Typically what I do is I have my final composition in the right-hand monitor, and then whatever clip I'm working on in the left-hand monitor. Let me show you what I mean. If I come down to my nodes, we're gonna go ahead and click on media in one. Now I wanna see what this clip is. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hit 1 on my keyboard, and it's going to place media in one into my left monitor, and I can see that it is the wall in my office. So now what I can do is hit F2, which will allow me to rename that node. And this way I can call this my plate, because that's what it's called. It's called a plate. That background element, that base of your entire composition, that's called a plate. So we're gonna call this plate. And if we wanted to, we could just do a little hash mark here, and we can just call it wall so we know exactly what it is. And we'll just hit enter. And if we come down here, you can see that media in one has been renamed to plate wall. If we click on media in two and we put that into our left monitor, we come over here, we can see that's our portal, and our portal happened to be on video track 2. While we're here, we'll go ahead and hit F2 and we'll rename this portal. We'll click on media in 3, press 1 to put it in the left monitor. We've got our forest here, and we'll go ahead, label that forest, and then media in 4, put that into the left monitor. We've got our alpha mat here, so we will rename that portal alpha. One other thing that you might want to do before getting started is right click in any area in the node section, come down, and you're going to hit arrange tools. Make sure to grid is checked, because that's going to help you. I'll show you. It'll help you snap everything to the grid. It's just going to help you keep things organized. It's not a necessary thing, but I find it very helpful. And just to keep things nice and centered, I'm going to go ahead and highlight all these nodes, move them over to the center of the node area. That's a little bit more comfortable to look at. That's the thing about this. You want to make things as comfortable as possible for yourself, so you're not straining or feeling aggravated. Just get nice and comfortable. We're gonna be here for a minute. A couple other things you want to keep in mind before we actually get started with this composition. Between the node section and the monitors, we've got a whole bunch of commonly used tools in Fusion. So we've got like a background here, we've got fast noise, text, paint, color corrector, curves, brightness and contrast, blur, merge nodes. We're going to be using merge nodes a lot. We'll talk about those in a second. We've got channel booleans. We've got matte control, just a whole bunch of stuff here. Splines are important. That's for rotoscoping. We're going to be doing some rotoscoping today. Don't worry, it's not as scary as it sounds. And that's really all you need to know as far as the layout of Fusion. With that knowledge, you should be able to get started. And if you ever forget what these little icons are, all you got to do is hover your mouse over, background pops up. See, it'll tell you exactly what it is. It's very handy. Now, from my experience, the one thing that will cause people the most trouble in Fusion is just not knowing how to think about it. We look at it, we see all these nodes, we get overwhelmed, and then we get, nope, too hard, too scary, I'm out. It's not that difficult. All you have to do is find a way to think about it that makes sense to you. And the way that I like to think about it is in layers, because I actually came over from the Adobe world. So thinking about everything in layers really, really helps. And merge nodes kind of separate the layers in Fusion. Let me show you what I mean. What we're gonna do first is we're gonna work on our first layer. We're gonna first break all of these different connections between our nodes, and we're gonna start from scratch. And all you have to do to break connections between nodes is just click on the line in between them. And now they're all broken. So our very first layer, our bottom layer, is going to be that plate. So let's go ahead and select our plate. We're just gonna bring it over to the left to keep it out of the way. We'll hit 1 to put it in our left viewer here. And the other thing that's going on this layer is our portal. Now, in order to get the portal on top of the plate, we need to use a merge node. So what we will do is we'll take this merge node, and if you hover your mouse over the different arrows of the merge node, you'll see this orange arrow is merge 1 background. This green arrow is merge 1 foreground, and this blue arrow is merge 1 effect mask. We'll be talking about masks a little bit later, but not right now. So if you didn't catch that, Fusion just told us exactly what we need to do. We've got our wall here, which is our background because it's on the bottom layer. And so we will connect our wall node with the background arrow of a merge node, and we'll take our portal and we'll put it on the foreground area of our merge node. And in order to see what we've created, what we'll do is select our merge node, and we'll put that merge node in viewer 1. But we see if we look in our viewer, we've got our portal effect with this black background, which is why we need to talk about blending modes. Now, if you've ever dealt with Photoshop or any kind of compositor before, you're probably pretty familiar with blending modes. It's different ways to blend one video clip or one photo with another video clip or photo. And the way that we deal with blending modes in Fusion is generally through a merge node. So if we select this merge node here, and we come over to our inspector, and we come to apply mode, and we click down on that drop-down box, you'll see that we've got a whole bunch of different options here. And what we want to do now, I'm not going to describe every single blend mode, but I will tell you, when you're getting rid of a black background, you're generally going to use screen. Now screen, what it's going to do, it's going to get rid of that black background, and it's going to lighten up that portal effect a little bit. It's going to make it blend into the scene a little bit more. And now we've got our portal on top of our wall. And that's great. So what we can do now, just to see our progress, is connect that merge node with media out, and we've got our portal on top of our wall. Looking good so far. Let's take a look at our second layer, which is our forest and our portal alpha. Go ahead and grab our merge 2 here. And again, we know that our forest is going to be behind the alpha mat. So what we'll do is take our forest and drag it into the background of merge 2, and our portal alpha into the foreground of merge 2, and we'll select that merge node and we'll put it into viewer 1, and you'll see we've got the same problem. We've got this alpha mat on top of our forest, but you can't see through it. You've got the black there, you've got the white there. Now the first thing that we need to do is we need to get the forest inside of the portal. So we need to get it inside of this white section here. And the best way to do that is with blending modes. So let's select our merge node, and we'll come over here, and we'll hit apply mode, and we'll hit multiply. And now we've got our forest inside of our portal. Pretty cool, right? So now we've got our first layer and we've got our second layer, but we have to layer them on top of each other. So what we need to do is we need to break this connection here, and we're going to use a merge node. So let's drag merge 3 right here. And we know that our wall, because that is the furthest back in our composition, is going to be the background. So we'll put that into our merge. We know that our forest and our portal alpha is going to be on top. So we'll drag that to our green arrow. Let's go ahead and connect merge 3 up with media out. And you'll see once again, we've got an issue. We've got our forest inside of that white section from the alpha, but it's still got that black background. We can't see the wall behind it. So what we need to do here, we could come over to merge 3 and we can try an apply mode because we know how to do that now. Let's go hit screen. But here's the problem. We kind of got what we were looking for. We've got the wall, we've got the portal, we've got the forest inside. But the problem is with this blending mode, with this screen blending mode, that that forest inside the portal looks a little bit translucent. We don't want that. That is not the look that we're going for. So this blending mode thing is not going to work. Let's talk about some other ways to get rid of a black background. Now, there are a few ways to get rid of a black background in a video. One is with there's some third-party plugins that'll do it, but we don't have any of those. I'm going to show you the way to do it. Everything we're doing is just with the built-in tools in Fusion. So what we're going to do is we're going to select Merge To, and we're going to hit Shift Space. And what Shift Space will do is it'll bring up a whole bunch of tools that you can use in Fusion, and it'll allow you to search for what you're looking for. What we're looking for is a Luma keyer. So we're going to type in Luma. You see Luma keyer. If we select that and hit Add, let's go ahead and make this just a bit more neat and tidy. There we go. So let's go ahead and select our Luma keyer and head over to the inspector. And we've got a few different things going on that we can play around with. The first one is kind of our range, our low to high range. And if we take this high range and we start bringing it down, if we bring it all the way down, you can see we've got our forest in our portal. It's not see-through. This is what we're going for. But the outer edge of this portal it's looking a little janky. So we've got some other settings we can play with, like blur. We can play with the blur, and that's looking pretty good. We can play with contrast and expand. That's looking pretty good. What happens if we bring this blur up even more? That's looking actually pretty fantastic right there. I kinda like that. The only complaint I have at this point right now is that my portal is just a little bit too small. I want to make it a little bit bigger. Now, unlike a video clip on the edit page, you just can't come and select your portal node and come into the inspector and change the size. What we need to do is add what's called a transform node. So if we hit, actually, we don't even need to hit Shift Space. We just come over into this toolbar and we find our transform node and we click it, and it added a transform node in between my portal and my merge. And what the transform node is going to allow me to do is just kind of move whatever it's connected to around. So I can move it to the left or to the right or to the left. I can move it up and down. I can pivot. I can change the size, which is exactly what we want to do here. I'm just going to double click on center to bring it back to the center. And I'm going to bring my size up to, let's say 1.4. That's looking pretty good, but you can see the mat didn't get any bigger because my forest is still the same size. So let's come over to my Portal Alpha node. We'll select that, add another transform node, make sure that's selected, come over, change the size to 1.4. Boom. And now we've got our forest inside of our portal. So hopefully that got you kind of familiar with the basics and how to think of everything. It's just a matter of kind of breaking it down in layers really works for me. Just taking 2 nodes at a time, figuring out what's behind what, and then kind of playing around with the tools and figuring out what you need it to do for you and figure out what tool will allow you to do that. Let's move on to our next pile, which is a little bit more complicated. We're gonna head back over to the edit page. We're gonna grab this second pile here, and we are going to right click, new Fusion clip, bring our playhead back to the beginning and go into the Fusion page. And we've got the same setup as before. Let's go ahead and move everything over to the center so we can see it better. First, let's break all these connections because I don't need them. And let's just see what everything is here. So media in 1, if we hit 1 to put it in the left viewer, we've got our wall. So we'll hit F2 and we'll call this plate. Media in 2, pop that into the left viewer. Should be our portal. Yep. F2, portal. Media in 3, pop that into the left. Once again, we've got our forest. Media in 4, this is the new one that we've got. We've got me staring at the wall. I'm not going to be staring at the wall. We're going to be doing something with this, but let's go ahead and call this one J. And media in 5, once again, we've got our portal alpha. F2, portal alpha. All right, let's put our first layer together. We've got our wall, and we've got our portal, and we've got our first merge node. Let's go ahead and put our wall into the orange arrow, which is the background, our portal into the green arrow, which is our foreground. We'll stick that merge node in one. We'll come over to the inspector, apply mode, screen, and we've got our portal on top of the wall. But remember, we want the portal bigger. So we're also going to select our portal. We're gonna hit a transform node, and we're gonna change the size to 1.4, and we're good to go there. And since we're already comfortable with doing the whole alpha thing, let's go ahead and do that right now too. So we've got our portal alpha, we've got our forest, we've got our next merge node. So forest, that'll go into the background. Portal alpha will go into the foreground. Grab this portal alpha, move our playhead here to where we can actually see it. First, let's move merge node 2 into our left monitor. Let's grab our portal alpha node. We're gonna add a transform node to it, change the size to 1.4. We're gonna take merge 2. We're gonna change our apply mode to multiply. Now we've got our forest inside of our mat. Just rearranging here to keep things in check. Now let's put these together. We've got our wall and our portal, which is gonna go into the background of this merge. We've got our forest and our alpha, which is gonna go into the foreground. We're gonna take this merge node, hit shift space, grab our Luma keyer. Let's pop merge 3 into our left. Let's go ahead and play around with that Luma keyer, select that, bring our range all the way down, bring that blur all the way up, just like we did last time. Bring contract and expand all the way down. Now we've got our forest inside of our portal. Let's go ahead and connect merge 3 over to media out 1. And let's go ahead and pop the J node into viewer 1. Now, what I want to do is put myself in this portal so it looks like I'm staring off into the distance. Now, so where does that put me in the composition? Well, it puts me on top of my forest. So let's go ahead and we'll grab our forest, we'll drag it out. We'll take our merge node here. We're gonna break this connection. We're gonna put we're gonna put the forest into the background of our merge. We're gonna put me into the foreground of our merge. And we're gonna connect merge 4 up with merge 2. Now, I am inside the portal, but now you can't see the forest. It feels like we're going backwards, but we're not. I promise, we're not. What we need to do now is get rid of the background in the image of me. This is where I get to talk to you about rotoscoping. Yeah, rotoscoping is just applying masks. That's really all it is in order to make some parts of a frame visible and other parts invisible. And that's exactly what we're gonna do here. Now there's a few different types of masks that you can create. You can create just square masks, you can create circle masks, you can create polygons, you can create B-splines. Now B-splines and polygons, basically the difference is with a polygon, everything that you do, every turn that you make is gonna be like kind of a sharp angle. With B-splines, every time you make a corner, it's actually gonna be rounded. Now, because we are tracing around me and I have a lot of round areas around the outline here, we're gonna use B-spline here. So we're gonna select our J node, we're gonna select B-spline, and you'll see that it added a B-spline node to the effect mask of the J node. Problem is we can no longer see me. So what we need to do is make sure our B-spline node is selected. We're gonna come into the inspector. We're just gonna hit invert, and that's gonna allow me to see everything that's going on here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to trace around me as carefully as I can. Doesn't have to be 100% perfect because we've got some tools to help with that, but I'm just gonna trace me all the way around. This can take a while. Now, truth be told, I hate rotoscoping, but I've found that using a tool like Mocha Pro makes it a lot easier. It's by Boris Effects, it's expensive, but it's worth it. They've got a ton of tools that will help with masking and tracking. They just make it so much easier, and you can do a bunch of cool stuff with it. I'll have it linked below if you want to check it out. Either way, we've got our mask done, but now you can see we've got our wall showing in our final composition, but not me. So all we need to do to fix that is make sure that that B-spline node is selected, and then over the inspector, just uncheck that invert mask. And there we go. And if we just double click in the node section, it will take out our outline there so we can see what we're working with. It doesn't look horrible. There's a couple things we need to fix. First of all, we need to blend me in a little bit. So what we're going to do is just come over, making sure that B-spline is selected again. We're just going to bring our soft edge up a little bit, and that'll blend me in a little bit more nicely. And we're also going to bring that border width up a little bit. And there you go. The other thing that we need to fix is right here. We've got yet another spot where you can see the wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom in on this. We're going to select our J node again, and we're going to add another B-spline. Select that B-spline, and let's go ahead and make a mask here. Now you'll see we've got our mask here, but it's not actually masking anything out. We can still see that part of the wall. So what do? Well, we can try what we did before, and we could hit invert, but all that's going to do is bring back the background of that clip of me. So we can't use that. Let's go ahead and uncheck invert. Sometimes what you got to do is play around with this paint mode setting here when you have a mask inside of another mask. What we're going to do is change that from merge to subtract, and boom, if I double check or double click on that, now you can see we've removed that part of the wall. And then we can go ahead and use soft edge, bring that all the way down, and that's looking pretty good to me. So far we've figured out how to layer things on top of other things. We've learned how to rotoscope and mask things out so you can see what you want to see. We're getting there. Now, let's try something a little bit more complicated. Back on the edit page, I've got this stack of video clips here it's 10 video clips high. So this is a big one. We've got the normal stuff like our wall and our portal and our mat and our forest and me, but we've also got all these rain elements, which I also got from Action VFX. Let's start off by doing the same thing. We're gonna snag all of these nodes. We're gonna right click, and we're gonna hit new fusion clip. Let's make sure that we're at the beginning of that fusion clip, and we're gonna go ahead and go to the fusion page. And this is looking pretty overwhelming. Let's go ahead and increase the size of our node area so we're not missing anything. And this time, because there's so many nodes, what I'm gonna do is just delete all of our merge nodes here, and we're just gonna start over with the merge nodes. Here we go. Go ahead and label our nodes real quick. So we've got our wall, portal, forest, and this is our distant rain. So we'll go ahead, F2, distant rain. This one is actually, let's see what this one is. This is our rain on ground wide. So I'll just say ROG wide. This is our rain on ground high angle. This is our medium rain. There's me. This is our close rain. And this is our portal alpha. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this big complicated thing isn't so you will know how to do this big complicated thing. It's just to show you that if you learn how to think about things the right way, you can pretty much figure out how to do anything. And the way we've learned how to think about things in Fusion is as if it was layers. What goes on top of what? And then what do we need to do with each node in order for it to look the way that we want to look? So here's what we're gonna do actually. Let's go ahead and move our media out all the way here to the end. We know we've got our wall. Just connect that to media out. And we know that we need to put our portal on top of our wall. So we'll go ahead and select our wall and we'll hit our merge node icon, and that automatically puts our wall into the background. We'll go ahead and put our portal into the foreground and change that to screen. There you go. We also know we need to increase the size of our portal. So we'll grab our portal node and we'll grab a transform and we'll change our size to 1.4. Again, we'll start with what we know and what we're comfortable with. So we'll go ahead and we'll grab our forest node and we'll grab our portal alpha node and we'll add a merge node to our forest. We'll put portal alpha on top, add a transform to that, and change the size to 1.4. There we go. And we know that this group is going to go below this group. So we'll select this merge node. We'll add another merge node and just drag it all the way over here. We'll put that merge node on top of that merge node. And now we just need to get everything looking the way that it needs to look. So we'll change the blend mode of this merge node to multiply. That'll get our forest inside of the alpha. And then we'll add a Luma keyer by hitting Shift Space, typing in Luma, selecting Luma keyer, hitting add, and we'll go ahead and we'll bring that range all the way down, crank our blur, bring down our contract and expand, and there we go. Now it's time to start layering in our first rain elements. So let's go ahead and grab our distant rain, because that is the rain that's going to be farthest back, but we know it's going to go on top of forest. So let's bring forest here. So we'll grab our forest and we know that's going to be behind our distant rain. So we'll add a merge node, bring our distant rain on top of merge 4. We want to get rid of the black background of our distant rain. So what we'll do is we will add another Luma keyer and start playing around with all of our okay, that's looking pretty good right there. But what we want to do is we want to mask it out so our distant rain is actually off in the distance. We're actually gonna first put our forest into viewer 1. We're gonna grab our distant rain. We're gonna grab a polygon spline. And the really cool thing about Fusion with these two viewers is what I can do with this polygon node selected, I can come over into viewer 1 and I can trace in viewer 1 exactly where I want my rain to show up. You'll see we've just got distant rain in the distance, and if we soften the edge, increase our border width, that's looking pretty good right about there. Now let's move on to our next rain element, which is going to go in a layer on top of our distant rain. So let's grab our rain on ground wide. We're going to add a merge node to merge 4 here. Bring rain on ground wide into our little merge node. We're going to add yet another Luma keyer. And we're also going to add a transform to this one. There we go, make it nice and small. This isn't going to show up in a whole lot. We'll go ahead and just place it. That's looking pretty good right about there. See, it's only showing up in that corner in our final composition. So it's not that important, but it's a little bit extra of a thing. So you can actually see water dropping onto the water, rain dropping onto the water. So we're done with that layer. Let's start a new layer by selecting merge 5 and adding another merge. And what's going to go in the foreground of this layer? Well, it's going to be our next rain element, our rain on ground high angle. And this is the rain that is going to be placed, is what you're going to see all around here on the ground and on the water. That's going to be that. So we're going to need to add yet another transform node and another Luma keyer, Shift Space, Luma keyer, add, and we want to control exactly where this is going to be seen. So we're going to add another polygon. So we'll start with the polygon, trace that around. There we go. Grab our transform. Just going to play around with it a little bit so it shows up exactly where we want it. And we'll play around with our Luma keyer. And that'll work. Again, this isn't going to be seen very much because you're still going to have me standing in the foreground looking out at this forest. So there's that. So next thing we want to do is add yet another layer of rain that's going to end right here about where the trees are. So let's start a new layer. Grab merge 6, another merge node, grab our medium rain, connect that. Again, we're going to do a polygon this time. We're just going to do a rectangle polygon here, and we're just going to increase the width, increase the height, increase the border width, soften the edge, and then we'll grab another Luma here. Now this rain's getting closer and that's looking a little bit too sharp for me, so we're going to actually bring up the blur on that a little bit, increase the border width again on that medium rain. Soften that edge a little bit more just to make it blend in. Starting to run out of room here, so I'm going to grab all these nodes, slide them over. All right, 2 more layers left. The next layer is me. So let's go ahead, add yet another merge node here. Bring the node of me. Boom. We're going to pop me into viewer 1. We're going to add a B spline, and we're going to do our splines just like we did last time. All right. That is created. Let's go ahead and uninvert that. There we go. I'm standing in the rain. We've still got that little bit of wall there. So we're going to add yet another B-spline. And let's zoom in here. And let's go ahead and change that paint mode to subtract. And there we go. We're looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and just soften the edges on these splines a little bit. That looks good. Let's move on to our last layer. So we'll go ahead, grab merge 8. We're going to add our last merge node here. We're going to grab our close rain, and this is really going to sell the scene because look, I'm standing in the rain. This is one of the things we got to think about. I'm standing in the rain, looking out at this forest. It stands to reason that there would be rain both in front of me and behind me. Well, right now we've only got rain in front of me. Let's add the rain behind. So we've grabbed our close rain. We've put it over merge 9. Once again, hit shift space, Luma keyer, add. And we've got some there, but we need a little bit more. So let's go ahead and bring that range down a little bit. There we go. Let's bring that blur up. Just gonna play with the balance between our range and our blur. We don't want it, I want it to look natural. And let's take a look at our final product. Really, when it comes to Fusion, it's just a matter of slowing down, not overwhelming yourself, and taking things piece by piece and thinking about it in layers really helped me kind of make sense of how Fusion worked. And I was able to go from something super simple, like tracking some sort of energy effect to my hand, all the way up to creating these multi-level compositions that don't look half bad. There's a lot more that you can do to make this look realistic, but we're not talking about photorealism today. That's like some advanced stuff. Maybe we'll cover that in a future tutorial. Let me know in the comments. Again, this video is completely inspired by my last episode of Scenes. If you haven't seen that, then make sure you check that out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.